Welcome, Jayda, to Charlotte's Web.
Hello, thanks for having me on, Charlotte. How are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Really good. I'm really pleased you said yes to come on. We were just talking behind the scenes there, weren't we? Back in the day when you were prominent in the news all the time, I wasn't politically minded at all, but I do remember seeing headlines and all the rest of it. But I think it first properly came into my vision during the COVID shit show, calling it out like I was.
Yeah, we got stuck into that. I mean, we had to. It was like the biggest scandal, and everybody was just falling for it. And I just thought there has to be. Thankfully, there were a lot of us out there that were like-minded. You know, when we went to all the big rallies, and you were like, okay, there's actually like lots and lots, thousands and thousands of people that aren't falling for it. But there were also people standing outside their houses banging pots and pans, and I just thought I would lose my mind.
Oh, yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day, actually, because even though I was very outspoken, I once got clap shamed during that. So the neighbours used to come out en masse on a Thursday night at 8 p.m. and we'd just be sat chilling in front of the chimney, you know, we weren't adhering to any of the rules. And I met a couple of weeks on the track, so I'm not looking at them. And then I just happened to catch one of their eyes and just to stay fair. So yeah.
Oh, it's all good fun. I thought, not for love nor money am I doing it. No masks, no clapping, no lockdowns. In fact, I think I travelled more during COVID, just that because I have that nature. You may have noticed.
Oh, do you?
I have that nature. I'm like, no one's telling. I am not complying with communism. So I travelled more during that period than I had for a long time. But yeah, that was their warm-up, right?
Well, yeah. Well, can you remember the initial thoughts of going, this is a load of crap?
Yeah.
Can you remember the exact moment?
Yeah, pretty much, actually, because people went mental at me. So like they used to do these live streams, and I actually started them in COVID. So I'd gone from all the right-wing activism, and I'd left the group that I was with, and I'd set up just a kind of my own little platform, Jayda Fransen, and was just doing some bits, just kind of building my life again, because I'd been in jail. They took my house, they closed my bank accounts. It was just madness. And then this COVID thing happened, and I thought, I can't have this. So I launched an advocacy service because I have a background in law. And I said, listen, if there's anyone out there that's being unlawfully fined and harassed by the state, then I don't care what your political persuasion is. I couldn't care less. You know, I'll represent you for free. And I didn't realize how much people would want those services. Wow. And then that kind of expanded, and we turned it into, that was a British freedom movement. And then we turned it into a party, and we use that to contest elections, but to tell everyone, spoil the ballot, because it's all nonsense. But so early on, I was live streaming saying to people, look, everyone needs to calm down. Like, this isn't what you think it is. And people that had like supported me for 10 years, maybe more, were really going crazy. Like, this is so irresponsible. You're going to kill people. You are literally killing people by saying this. And it was so early on. It was like, it was right at the very beginning. I mean, I was watching what was happening before it had even gotten to the UK, right? I was just listening to the chat when it was like, oh, it's confined to China. And I thought, nope, I know what's going on here. And so, but I thought, no, I have to stick to my guns. And I said, listen, I know that at the moment people are going to be very upset, and I'll probably lose people that I've known for a long time or what have you. But eventually, I don't want to be vindicated, but I know I will be. And yeah, sometimes you just got to stick with your guns, right? And say, look, don't comply. And so instead of just saying, no, I told you so, because that was never my intention.
Yeah.
I just thought, how can I help people? So we had an advocacy service. We did that. I don't know if you remember those. We made those lanyards. Remember the government issued a picture that said, I'm exempt.
The sunflower lanyards, or the...
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah.
So the government put a picture on their website and said, you can show this to like a bus driver or whatever. And basically it says that you're exempt and no one's allowed to question you because it's on the grounds of disability of some sort. And it was a very broad, legal definition of disability. So I thought, this is good. So we made plastic cards and lanyards, and we gave thousands of them out for free, sent them all over the country, because not everyone is like willing to have a row. I would go into a shop, and if someone said, where's your mask? I'd be like, mind your own business. wanted a little something to say, I'm exempt, and then they were left alone. So I thought wherever possible, we just need to help people find the will and the voice to say, I'm not complying with this.
Yeah. Or the way to live a normal life whilst it was all going on, perhaps, as well. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice one. So you did mention the activism. So some people might be watching this, they may not know who you are. Do you want to give a bit of maybe a background before you joined Britain First, or before you started Britain First, and how that came about and what it actually is and was?
Yeah. So actually, I was never really interested in politics. I actually don't really like politics. I mean, not the politics of our nation, because it's just corrupt and it's self-serving, and I don't think that it's that the will of the people isn't regarded at all. So I was never actually that political. But I grew up in London, in Southeast London, and I worked in London when the 7/7 bombs went off, and then Lee Rigby was killed. And so like all of that sparked my interest. And I remember watching the killer of Lee Rigby on TV talking about the Quran and why he had done it. And I thought, I need to look into this. So I kind of got on my soapbox and went to a few different groups and checked them out. And one of them was Tommy's group, EDL, back in the day. It wasn't really for me. It wasn't very structured. It was just kind of a street movement. But there were lots of well-meaning people in there. And then I got involved in Britain First. And I think being female and young, I was in my 20s, I think you kind of inadvertently rise to prominence quite quickly, because there aren't a lot of 20-year-old women running around the streets with crosses agitating people. And so, yeah, like life changed very, very quickly. As you can imagine, my career in law was over. I shut down my business and dedicated my life to activism and right-wing politics. But it was all, for me, it was always about the activism side of things, rather than the political, dredging through manifestos and all the rest of it. I wasn't down for that. I just wanted to get out there and show people things are wrong and we need to collectively do something about it. But I left that group maybe, I don't even know where we are now, 8 years ago. And now I run the Christian Nationalist Party. So we're still out there, we're still active, but we take quite a different approach. The approach that we take is positive rather than negative. In the past, I have found that, and this is the same of many of these groups, is that they run negative campaigns to keep people locked in, keep them angry, keep them in a state of fear, so that they will part with money, so that they will, attend events that are, fruitless, really. But for me, it was very important to provide people with actual solutions, even if it's something as simple as a lanyard or a letter to help them cancel their TV license. We're running that campaign at the moment. I want to give people solutions. I don't want everyone just locked into this perpetual state of anxiety, because I don't think that we'll achieve anything by that. So
completely. We'll have to get that website up and show people where they can get you. Do you do templates? Is that what you kind of do? Letter templates for people?
So we've got like a letter template, which is great. I actually tested it out at the beginning, because I thought I need to think about certain angles here, and we did a trial run, and it's everyone that's used it has been successful. And you end up and they'll give you so in response, they'll come back first of all and acknowledge what you've said, which is what we give you, and you say nothing else. You just give them what we give you. You don't have to sign your name. You can just send them that from your address, and then you get like almost like a certificate from the TV license folks saying, we will not contact you by mail, by phone, or send anyone to your address. It's like 2 years normally, they say, and in 2 years we may review it, but don't worry, if they come back in 2 years, I'll still be here and I'll help you again.
I've not paid mine for years now, and but it's just that threat, isn't it? Because back in the day, didn't they threaten people with vans going around neighborhoods with like detectors in the
lies, right? Do you remember that? This was terrible. So this was like the bogeyman, wasn't it? They used to say to people, the vans are outside, and they had vans outside that were just there to scare the life out of, to scare people into parting with their money.
Yeah.
And I remember a report years ago. They were so ambiguous about this because there were people trying to do freedom of information requests saying, are these vans actually, can you give us some statistics about how many of these like people have been caught using these vans? And they basically said, oh, you know, it's not in the public interest for us to give actual figures on this. They don't, there's nothing in those vans. It's just people sitting in there.
Because they wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. Yeah, there's no technology for it.
Of course, madness. So,
yeah.
But I don't know if you've ever seen this, but the main perpetrators, the main people that are jailed for the offence of not paying the TV tax are women.
Yes,
they go after women because they know, like, can you imagine some like elderly woman getting threatened with prison for not paying? It's just disgusting.
There was a story not so long back. I remember some lady with like stage 4 cancer or something like that had been, I don't know if she'd been sent to jail, but she'd been criminalized for it, whatever way. Just don't answer your door, people, first of all.
Yeah. And film them out the window. They hate that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos on that. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Right, well, let's go back to your Britain first days, because like I said, I remember seeing your face plastered all over the papers back in the day, and maybe in my naivety, just you see the headlines, you see the smears that they call you, you know, so a lot of people might look at you now and think, oh, that's Jayda Fransen, the racist. How do you respond to that?
That's the one. Well, the thing is, even back then, I never allowed that name, that label, to do what it was intended to do. It's a silencing technique. That word is so dangerous. I mean, it's been so dangerous in the British psyche that it actually enabled a grooming scandal to take place over a span of 40 years in the UK. Purely because people in positions of authority, people that should have been in positions of nurture and care, like the social services and the police and politicians, they were so fearful of being labelled racist that they covered up and actually, in a sense, aided and abetted the grooming scandal, the grooming gang scandal in the UK. And so even way back 10, 15 years ago when that was being levied at me, I didn't really care because I thought, I know what you're trying to do and I'm just not going to allow it to work. But the truth of the matter is that I don't, my genuine beliefs and politics and activism has always been driven. I'm a Christian, and it's always been driven by a love for my people, not a hatred of others. And this is something that our group has always said throughout the years, is that if you consider yourself a nationalist, it has to be driven by a love for your people and your nation. Because, you know, I think we're headed for really dark times, and we're in quite dark times even now. And so if you expect people to possibly even lay their life on the line and risk their lives because they are motivated by hatred of someone else, that's quite an unusual thing for people to agree and sign up to. You will, however, find people, and you see this with the Covenanters throughout Christian history, certainly, who will lay down their life for something they believe and they love. And so the position that I come from is that I genuinely, I've worked with these grooming victims for years and years, and I genuinely just, my heart breaks at the state of the nation and what's being inflicted upon people. So, but I do also think that I did a very good job at kind of misrepresenting myself. You know, I was on screens, I'm screaming, I've got the big cross, you know, people are like, what is this woman doing? But Marmite, really.
One of the things that I've got you on a couple of shows in the last couple of years, and I'm really, really impressed by how eloquent you are. So first, because you used to do a lot of speeches, didn't you? If you go on YouTube, you can find many of them. And we're going to put one on. I might insert one afterwards in the edit. But that's not the main thing about you. But I'm really, no wonder the press, you know, made a thing of you, because you are quite an impressive person, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think the press will obviously like tarnish you and portray you. They'll portray anybody actually who is right-leaning, and that includes all of the COVID people. The people that I met during the COVID scam.
Yes.
I wouldn't have considered them right wing at all. I mean, like, you know, most of them were libertarian at its mildest. We were united in our resistance to this tyranny, but these people weren't right wing, and they were being labelled far right. I remember like loads of people on the, and I just thought, but in a way, I was kind of like, well, welcome to my world, you know, because I've been saying all of, and I would say that I am right wing. I mean, I'm not ashamed of that, but it was just a strange thing to see these people that were obviously like, you know, the same sort of people, I suppose. I never really got into it with them because it wasn't the topic, but the same people that I suppose when they were claiming bodily autonomy when it came to the vaccine, which I absolutely support, I expect that many of them would have applied that logic to something that I am ferociously against, like abortion. Now that's me being on the conservative side of things. And those same people that had the same objection about bodily autonomy and not wanting to take an experimental vaccine could also have applied that in a very liberal. So they lumped us all in together. And
the "my body, my choice" phrase was used for different reasons, wasn't it? Then
yeah, it was, and I was quite mindful of the fact that, you know, I remember going to these rallies and there were people stood at these COVID. There were like a gaggle of people in the corner that would have loads of communist flags. Just like, what is that? You're at a freedom rally with a communist flag. It attracted everyone. You had people, you had like the Latin mass Catholics that were chanting in Latin, and you had everybody out who felt strongly enough to be there. It was a unifying issue, certainly. Like, it was something that drew people out. But I did feel that it gave a lot of people who had sort of maybe snubbed or just assumed the worst of me over the years, realized that it didn't take much for them to be thrown into the same boat as me, and oftentimes it wasn't even fair that they were. So I think I'd like to think that people are more conscious of the fact that those labels are not really, they're a misrepresentation, I would say, of most of us.
Yeah. I guess as well, I was going to ask you, because I'm super interested. So in terms of your stance on, I guess, Islam, you know, what you were fighting for, what you were, for want of a better word, preaching about, has your stance on, I guess, immigration policies and why things are happening changed since way back then when you were on the streets?
My stance on immigration hasn't changed, in the sense that I don't support it and I never will. And I want it all stopped. But I do absolutely, I will say that my time in Britain First, certainly, I was very green to like the geopolitical situation. So, you know, I think unwittingly I was doing the bidding through my activism. I found myself doing the bidding of a lot of these big Zionist groups and people that had their own agenda. The kind of counter-jihad movement, if you like. I was on the UK side of that, and there were some big names in the US and Canada, and we all networked, but I was never like, you know, asked to go to Israel or any of that kind of stuff that some of the guys in Rebel or some of the other people were doing. And actually, I will say, like, politically and even in terms of my own faith, I was very green to the whole issue of Zionism. And so over the past, I don't know, few years, like quite a few years now, certainly, as you may have seen, I've actually made it a real mission of mine to enlighten people on this issue, because it's one of those light bulb moments that when you realize, like when you notice,
the noticing,
right, when you notice, it all kind of falls into place. And then I also felt quite angry, because I felt like I say, I had unwittingly done the bidding of these people. Now, that's not to say that I regretted my stance or changed my stance, because I hadn't. I am opposed to Islam in the UK. I am opposed to immigration. I do support borders. The Bible supports borders. So, you know, none of that has changed. But I every now and then I see people online, these big Zionist accounts on Twitter, and they'll share one of my videos and they'll put it up and say, like, you know, this right-wing woman confronts all the Muslims, and I'm like, listen, I don't want you sharing it. I don't mind other people sharing it. I don't want these big Zio accounts sharing it. I didn't do that for you guys. Because there's like this assumption in the UK, which is really sad, but it's a product of the bastardization of the right wing, that you must be aligned with one side or the other. And listen, I am absolutely and unequivocally against Israel. Now, that doesn't mean I want Palestinian flags up in my nation. I don't. And I don't want Palestinian refugees here, but I also don't want these people being ethnically cleansed. And it's such a strange thing to me to see how, when you notice that actually politics has been completely dominated by this for a couple of decades, while
both sides,
exactly. And it's weird, because I suppose more recently people would say, you know, I had people calling me Jihadi Jayda at one point because I wasn't sticking up for Israel, right?
Make it make sense.
Like, I don't think I have seen another person. I know that there are people out there right now doing bits and bobs in terms of activism, but if you look over my history as an activist, I don't think I've seen anybody else in any other part of the world that's come to my attention that has stormed as many mosques, that has preached outside as many of these, has gone through all these no-go zones, been spat at, been kicked, been attacked, had chairs thrown at me, like all of that, gone and doorstepped Anjem Chowdhury, doorstepped a number of convicted terrorists, chased grooming gangs through the streets. I don't recall seeing anybody else do that. And so to have people on the Zio right say, she's a jihadist, I'm just like, where are we? It's wild. It's wild.
Oh dear, I haven't watched it yet, but I really want to. But I was because I remember it being. I remember seeing it on Twitter. You did do an interview recently with Dilly Hussain, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple of years ago now.
Was it a couple of years ago? Oh, was it? Because I guess do you have supporters, or do you have are you more liked by Muslims nowadays? Maybe?
Wow. So this was an interesting thing, right? And this was a bit disconcerting because I wasn't expecting. This wasn't on my 2025 bingo card. Actually, I think it might have been last year that I did that. It was about a year ago, a year and a bit. I think that sit down with Dilly made people realize, well, predominantly Muslims, because his audience are Muslim. I think it made them realize a couple of things. First of all, I think they realized that this woman actually has some stuff to say and has some beliefs. She might not agree with them, but I'm able to articulate them. You know, which I think actually a lot of people who claim to hold certain beliefs, they fail to do that. You know, I always think if I'm not 100% on something, then I won't stick. But I won't talk about it publicly, because I have to be confident in what I'm saying, and I have to believe it. You know, say what you mean and mean what you say. So I think it gave them the opportunity to see that she's not just a raving lunatic that just runs through the streets with a cross, but she actually, you know, has some points. Whether we agree with them or not is another thing. But the other thing I think it showed them is that the opinion they have formed of Christians in the UK or in the West is not the case throughout the whole of Christendom. And so what I mean by that is, you know, we see a lot of liberalism has really infected Christianity, and the faith has been bastardized just as much as the right wing has. And we've got, you know, the church of our nation appointing women, which is unbiblical, and supporting gay marriage and things that are in direct contradiction to Christian scriptures. But the Muslims, they hasn't really infected their communities yet. Like it will, because I am seeing westernization. I've spoken to Muslims that have said they themselves are seeing westernization within their own community. So it's, you know, it's unavoidable to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I think they were quite surprised to see that actually on some issues, like those conservative issues, actually there are Christians out there that do take it seriously, and it's not all liberal Zionism. I mean, a lot of the whitewashing or the tampering with the Christian scriptures has been an agenda of the Zionist lobby to just water down everyone's beliefs and erode them. And then you can't even really, we're not really, we're an apostate nation, right? We're not really a Bible believing nation. I don't think many people have read the Bible in the UK, which even 70 years ago would have been a very strange thing to hear. So, so I did find that I got a load of new Muslim followers online, and it was a bit disconcerting. I was like, what's going on? Like, and they were all, a lot of them were like, "Oh, sister, you know, God
well,
bless you."
I guess as well, what part of you kind of changing your stance ever so slightly and realizing what the bigger agenda is proves that, well, in a similar way to the Muslims, we're all tools here. Well, and a lot of them seem to understand it more than us. I said on a previous podcast about getting in a taxi in London a couple of years ago, and this young Afghani guy was driving the Uber, and he was kind of mocking us. I think it was when Russia had just invaded Ukraine, and he was trying to have a conversation geopolitically with us, and he thought we didn't know what we were talking about before he started speaking to us, and he was making out about Afghanistan and assumed that we'd believe the mainstream narrative of weapons of mass destruction, etc., blah blah blah. So if we see through the lies, then we can all, kind of unite in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sad thing is that a lot of the Muslims that were supportive, and they get quite annoyed actually, because now and then, especially more recently, I see a lot of the big Islamic accounts really attacking Christianity, and I don't really care for that. So I sometimes have a dig back, and they don't like it because they say, "Oh, I thought you had changed." Well, I've only changed in the sense that I understand there is a bigger play, but not in the sense that I will ever convert to Islam or anything like that. But I think for me, it was a bit of a sad indictment that there were quite a few Muslims that I would say who genuinely, they sent me private messages, and they were really polite, and they were genuinely like grateful for me speaking out against what was happening to the Palestinians. And I just thought, this is quite sad, because for me, this is just a human issue. Like, I could say I'm a Christian and therefore I'm against ethnic cleansing, but I just think as human beings, we should be against the bombing and maiming and not just that, but the total subjugation over 70 odd years of a group of people, of ancient peoples in their lands. And when people claim to be nationalists and then say, the Palestinians should be driven out of their lands, I think, well, you can't really be a nationalist if you believe that that's the case, because then what's to say that we shouldn't be driven out of ours? Like, what if Israel decided, actually, the UK, what did that guy say recently? That there was a Jewish guy that said there's a special place in hell for the United States. They decided that they wanted to drive
video, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And but yeah, so I thought that was, I actually thought that was quite sad that they were like expressing gratitude. And I did point out as well, listen, this isn't me like simping for Muslims. These are human beings, and there are Christians in there, and Israel are great at starting wars and proxy wars throughout the Middle East that destabilizes the region and then sends all of you guys into my country, and then I'm charging around the streets with a cross screaming about it, right? It's a domino effect. So I'm not like some saint to them, but I thought that was quite sad that they were like thanking me for stating the obvious, that this is wrong.
Upside down world, eh? Well, another thing I wanted to bring up with you as well, just in terms of us all being tools and being used, I've completely forgotten about this until I looked earlier on the internet about I want to go back to the Jo Cox shooting. The murder.
I claimed for that, didn't I?
In fact, let me just play this 1 second.
Right-wing extremist, terrorist, and they reported that the alleged gunman, who has been named as Tommy Mayer, shouted "Britain first" during this attack. This caused a media frenzy, and as you can imagine, myself and my colleagues at head office were inundated with phone calls, emails and interview requests asking us if we knew of this man, if we had heard the rumours that he had shouted Britain first. Now let's take a look at the source of this hearsay. In this case, there are supposedly 3 eyewitnesses. The first eyewitness is alleged to have said that the shooter shouted "Britain first" whilst carrying out his attack. In actual fact, this witness, who was the first to have been quoted by the media as allegedly confirming that the shooter shouted "Britain first," has publicly confirmed that he wasn't at the scene. He was in his car, stuck in traffic at the time, and he has posted a poster in the window of his business confirming that he was not there, he did not hear anyone shout "Britain first," and he did not say that he had. The second of the supposed eyewitnesses was quoted by the media as saying he heard the shooter shout "Britain first" during and after the attack. This is what he had to say when approached by a news reporter.
You know, some people have said that there was "Britain first" was being said.
Never heard that.
Which restaurant are you from?
As you can see, the first and second of the supposed eyewitnesses have both confirmed that they did not hear the shooter shout "Britain first."
They just...
So tell me your memories of what happened around then and what you think of the situation now looking back.
Well, I remember everyone being really rattled. And I remember so many interview requests coming in. And I used to do all the media stuff for Britain First. So, and some of it was really underhanded. Like Nick Ferrari got me on LBC and then basically turned my microphone right down so that I couldn't. I basically, they claimed I had a right of response, but they didn't actually let anyone hear it. It was just absurd. But yeah, so the headlines were, this guy's a Britain First supporter and he follows Jayda Fransen. Therefore, she's murdered this woman. Like, that's how that goes. She's worse than Hitler. She's murdered this woman. And, you know, the whole world's going to implode. And I thought, well, okay, this is an interesting one. Let's see. A subsequent I had forgotten all about that video that I'd done because I used to do so many of those. But a subsequent documentary that was done on this actually said that this kind of ironic because this is the line that they use whenever there's like a terrorist attack or what have you, but they said that the guy had mental health issues and he'd walked into a walk-in center and said, like, I'm hearing voices, that he was known to be schizophrenic. I'm hearing voices, I need help. And they sent him home and said, come back tomorrow. Like, it's too late. You need to come back tomorrow. And instead of going back, he went to Jo Cox's surgery and killed her. And so there were people that were saying he shouted, put Britain first. There were some people that said he shouted Britain first. It turned out he was nothing to do with us. He wasn't on our database. We didn't know anything about him. He had severe mental health issues and apparently he never even said anything about Britain first.
In an Allahu Akbar kind of way.
Exactly, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, this is the in a Twin Towers, we found a passport laying on the floor kind of thing. Right? Yeah, like one of those ones. Like, just the most circumstantial evidence that you can ever... Look at that. Hold on a minute. There's a passport that's made it. So, you know, it was that kind of nonsense. But at the time, my colleagues weren't... I think my colleagues were still actually more concerned with playing the game and trying to appease the media. And here's the thing. You can't win with these people, so don't try. If you try and fight your corner and argue your case and, you know, he might have followed me, but I didn't follow him and I don't support this. And, you know, if you go down that road, they just want to crucify you like they really do. It's the same way that people still feel the need to prove that I'm not racist. I'm not racist. It's like, listen, stop caring about the words that they're using. Like, just stop caring. If they say you're racist, just go, okay.
The tactics, aren't they? Yeah.
Exactly. So, So at the time, like, the people in the movement were freaking out, and I just said, "Don't worry about it; it'd be fine." And so anyway, a few years went by, maybe 10 years went by, maybe a bit more. I don't know. It was a long time ago, and I was running the British Freedom Party, which it's now the Christian Nationalist Party, but at the time it was the one that we did after COVID. So I'd left Britain First, launched that to help people, and then we started standing in elections. And we stood in that. I stood in that constituency just to rile them up. And you can imagine they were like, "This is disgusting. This is the woman." Still saying this is the woman responsible, and she's standing in this seat. There had been an independent inquiry into this, and they had said this was nothing to do with her or Britain First, or in fact the right wing. This was just a nut job. And but mud sticks. So if you throw enough of it, people will always remember there's that MP killing racist Jayda Fransen.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so I mean, the scenario, like looking back at it now, do you think it was? I mean, not being a conspiracy theorist, but I think a lot of things happened as a result of her death, and I don't know. I've got questions about the whole thing.
Yeah, like did it happen? Was he put up to it? It's the same thing, you know. We see these time and time again, and I don't like to go like full tinfoil hat too often. But it is becoming glaringly obvious to folk that
look at her sister. I mean, Jo Cox's sister is the main instigator of this assisted suicide bill. I'm not saying that's as a result of her dying, but
the opportunity's opened because of that, and she's propped up. And when I stood in that election, and I only stood just to say like this whole system is corrupt. She was Batley and Spen, yeah. And she was standing in her sister's seat, and it was quite funny actually, because she was going through the streets, and all these Muslims were coming up to her and saying like, "We don't want you here, go," because she's really like pro-trans, pro-LGBT, and they didn't want it, and that teacher had just been driven out of that school. There were Muslims campaigning outside schools against their kids being taught LGBT stuff, and so. Look, none of it fitted together. Actually, none of it does. They squeeze it into whatever narrative they want to suit them, and then they piggyback off of it for the rest of their lives. And so I do think, you know, I see some people when they get a bit carried away with these conspiracy theories, like that never happened, it was CGI. I'm like, okay, this is a bit much. There's eyewitnesses, that's a bit much. But do I think that there are people that are used as tools, as you say, by the state to push a certain agenda? 100%.
Well, I think as well, they were, I'm not saying that they're responsible, but one of the common themes between Jo Cox, the sister, and is it her husband, Brendan Cox? I think he's blocked me on Twitter. The Fabian Society comes up often. So, that's quite a prominent name.
And his shenanigans overseas with the different charities.
Yeah.
You know, this should be...
pushing proper narratives as well, like really hard left stuff. Tosser. Just going back to something you just said a minute ago, I was wondering, were there any actual prominent journalists that used to gun for you often? Because I'm going to play in a minute a video of you talking about Piers Morgan. So in your time,
you've got a deep dive here, Sean. We're old.
You're going to do your thing. It's the producer in me as well. So.
I know. Listen, credit to you, because I didn't even remember filming that video that I was just talking about the Jo Cox one. So I do remember Piers Morgan. He had a special hatred for me, which really was born. Was the fuel that was thrown on the fire there. He hated me for a long time, but the fuel that was thrown on the fire was after President Donald Trump retweeted a few videos, and then Piers Morgan went out of his way to say like, this is a nasty little racist and you should not be retweeting her. And I'm just like, listen, just tell these people to mind their own business. Like, you're the leader of the free world. He did. Donald Trump said to Theresa May when she said take them down, he said, look, worry about the Islamic terrorism in your country and leave me be. And however you feel about that as an entire statement, it is quite ludicrous that people are telling a duly elected president of the United States of America how to run his social media account. So,
do you want to just tell people what the headline of what happened there? So I remember this as well.
Yeah, this was carnage. This is a long time ago. What was this? Maybe 20, I think this was 2017, because they threw me in jail after that in 2018. So I woke up one morning, sat at my desk as I do, didn't log on to social media because I just like to give my brain a break from it. And back then, just to give some context, I was involved in Britain First. We had the biggest social media groups in the country. So our social media following was bigger than all of the other political parties, including the government combined. And the press had said to us for a long time, like, how are you doing this? Are you buying likes? I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even think that's possible. What we're doing basically is we're just having a party. Like, we're going live and saying whatever we think needs to be said. And actually it's resonating with the people of the UK and a lot of people in the US. And so we had this massive following online, and then this particular morning my phone rang, and it was a journalist who I had a relatively, I mean, he was always hostile. His articles were always hostile, but I'd kind of agreed, look, you can write what you like. I don't really care, but just don't go too far. Like, don't take the mick. I don't mind if you want to sensationalize things, but don't lie. And if you're honest, then I will give you exclusives. Like, if you want the story first, because and it was so obscure. It was like the IB Times or something, right? Anyway, so it was funny because one of the stories he wrote, he put myself and Oswald Mosley next to each other when I got convicted of wearing a political uniform. And I remember at the time my colleagues in Britain First going mental, and I was like, I don't mind that. Like, that's fine. So anyway, he called me and said, how does it feel to be retweeted by the leader of the free world? And I was just like, I had no idea. I was like, I don't know, like, where are we going with this? And he said, you haven't looked at your social media account today, have you? And I said, no. And he said, you might want to turn that on, and you might want to turn the TV on and stick the news on. And it was really weird. So, you know, when there's like a royal death or a terrorist attack, not now, terrorist attacks now get ignored, but do you remember, like, back in the day, there would be a banner like you've got at the bottom of the screen running across the bottom, and it would have the main story of, like, I don't know, Princess Diana's killed in a car crash, like that kind of stuff, right? And my face and this banner was on this screen for over 48 hours. It was nuts. It was insane. And so I hired out a room and just gave hundreds and hundreds of interviews from people all over the world, flew Australia, Russia, everyone, because it's really weird, because now, like, he's quite vocal on social media, but back then this had never been done. And I was like the guinea pig, and I actually didn't realize what effect this was going to have on my life. I mean, I didn't have any control over it, but I didn't realize that this was going to make me literally enemy number one of the state. And they went all guns blazing. Like, they went into complete meltdown. And the funny thing is, you put the little retweets up a minute ago. I put the videos that I put up, I didn't even put anything really contentious. Like, they were just clips of stuff that had happened. There was a guy that had smashed up a statue of the Virgin Mary. There was a kid that got beaten up by a second generation immigrant, and there was a gay guy getting thrown off the roof by ISIS.
Which all happened.
All of that happened. I didn't have any involvement in it.
Weren't you pushing someone off the roof?
No. And I actually didn't even say one way or another my feelings about it. I didn't say, like, this is disgusting, or I didn't actually give any comment. I just put the facts up and the videos, and they went crazy. Like, they just the media and the establishment. And then so Theresa May said to Donald Trump, take it down, and he said, no, don't tell me how to run my social media account, which was great. I was cracking up. And
what was that? Was that on Twitter? Or?
Yeah, he tweeted back and was like, listen, worry more about the Islamic terrorism in your country, and don't tell me how to run my social media. So there was huge embarrassment, and LBC were like running these stories saying they introduced me on air as the woman responsible for the breakdown in communication between Number 10 and the White House. That was how they introduced me. I was like, what is going on? So all of this is happening. She's then gone to the European Union and said, he's not taking that down. Do something. And it was the European Union that contacted Twitter and said, he won't undo those retweets. All he had to do was just hit undo. And he just said, no, I'm not doing it. I would have said, no, I'm not doing it as well. I respect him for that. And so they said, right, the next best thing, delete her account. And so what they did was they just bang, just got rid of it. Got rid of
What a claim to fame, Jayda.
I know, right? I mean, and the thing is, up until that point, I'd been in all the headlines for wearing like a flat cap and doing mosque invasions or whatever madness of the day that I'd been doing. And then suddenly I'm being pitched as this like evil mastermind that's conspired to like destroy the special relationship between these two nations. And I'm thinking
that it's got Donald Trump's ear almost, maybe.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was strange.
Look what I've got here. I watch.
What's fair? If you're telling me there's a horrible people,
Wait, I might have to rewind a little bit.
And I get an apology.
Right, yeah.
And I get an apology out of you just for the retweets. And
well, if you're telling me,
I think it would go a long way.
Then here's what's fair. If you're telling me there's a horrible people, horrible racist people, horrible, I would certainly apologize if you'd like me to do that. I know nothing about them.
And you would disavow yourself of people like that.
I don't want to be involved with people, but you're telling me about these people because I know nothing about these people.
Irritation with my country. We've given state visits to Bashar
and also, just this one just to follow up.
This is yet another clear display of Piers Morgan, and I hate to say, but the majority of the British media are just demonstrating irresponsible reporting and in fact inaccurate. Because let's face it, Piers Morgan is just desperate for some kind of exclusive. And in this instance, he has completely misled the President of the United States by claiming that I'm something I'm not. And I have challenged Piers Morgan to sit down with me and to discuss these absolutely horrific accusations that I am a horrible, nasty racist, something that I wholeheartedly refute. And if Piers is willing to take me up on my challenge to sit down and let's have a civilized discussion. Let's not mislead people and let's not proclaim to represent the entire United Kingdom by saying that I'm a horrible racist, I should be condemned. He's been railroaded into saying that he would offer an apology if I might add, and those were President Trump's words, if, as Piers Morgan says, I am a horrible, nasty racist, then of course he would condemn me. Well, that goes without saying. I would do the same if somebody told me and could evidence that someone was a horrible, nasty racist, then I would have the same feelings about them. But quite frankly, it's not true.
Would you like to meet Trump whenever he visits?
Absolutely. And I'd just like to add that, you know, this frenzy that the retweets cause, and then off the back of that, the British establishment claiming that President Trump is not welcome in our country. He is very welcome, and that's evidenced by the millions of people that have shown support for him right here in the UK. You know, the fact is, this is all about censorship. This is the British establishment trying to censor the President of the United States and his social media presence, and quite frankly, accusing someone of being a horrible, nasty racist with absolutely no evidence to back that up is irresponsible, immoral, and I am the one that is owed an apology by Piers Morgan. I sincerely hope I receive it.
Did you ever receive that apology?
I never got it, Charlotte. I never got it. I'm sure it's been lost in the mail. I'm sure it's on its way. I think he's maybe just still trying to write it in the most sincere way.
You know what he's like.
His team actually reached out to me and said, "We'll get you on."
Right.
Good Morning Britain. So that the reason I was kind of being a bit, I don't know, a bit smug there with the media. I don't know if you know, but I'm stood outside Lagonside Court there in Belfast.
Right.
So after those retweets, within like a few weeks, in fact, before those retweets, I had been arrested in London by the PSNI. The police in Northern Ireland had flown over to England. They had got me in a police station where I was forced by the English police to sign on every Saturday as part of these bail conditions to restrict my movement. Mm-hmm. They grabbed me, they drove me from London to Liverpool, put me on a boat overnight, took me into Belfast, and they accused me, and my charge sheet said I had given a speech which was anti-Islamic in nature. That was the charge, right? Well, this wasn't in Pakistan. This was in Northern Ireland.
It's not a crime.
Part of the UK, right? Yep. Exactly. And so I think that, to be honest, I think that's what actually got the president's attention, because it was all of that frenzy that was happening, and then the retweets happened. So then they went, right, now we're going to get her. So what I was doing, I was really winding them up. Like, I remember at one point I went to Belfast City Hall, and I knew one of the councillors that was working in there at the time, and you could go in. You used to be able to go into Belfast City Hall and sit on like the mayor's chair, which is a big, big, grand wooden chair, and put the robes on, right? So I put the robes on, sat in this chair, filmed a video, and did like an address.
Oh,
Like, I'm just updating everybody on my call, because like they were hounding me, and I was basically, it was like just total defiance. Like, you guys think that dragging me through the courts is going to stop me? I'm going to dress up and address you from the Lord Mayor's chair of Belfast City Hall. And it was just riling them. So but that day I was in court and I saw.
Can I see that anywhere, by the way? Sorry. Is that available?
Yeah, it'll probably be on it might be on my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel still, but it's like completely suppressed. But it's
I'll
really
look
old.
for it.
Yeah, Thank you for joining me. This is a quick video update from City Hall in Belfast, which is the scene of the original crime for which I'm being prosecuted. You may recall that last year in August I gave a speech along with several other members of Britain First, and I'm now on several charges for giving that speech in which I mentioned the I word, Islam. I also shot a video outside a peace wall. In total, I'm facing 6 charges, and I'm back in court in Belfast on the 26th of January, just a few days before I also face trial on the mainland. Now, I just want to thank everyone for their support so far. The trial date over here has been set for the 6th of April. And for everybody who's shown up at the court and sent in messages and donations to support our plight, I thank you with all my heart. This is ongoing. Free speech appears to be dead in our great nation, but believe you me, I will not rest until we have our freedoms and our rights back. God bless you all. More updates shortly. Yeah, I cringe at all of it because it was mad. It was mad times, but you just had to run with it. And so the thing is, back then, I think that people were still quite mindful of these terms like being labelled racist. And I actually think that during his first term, Donald Trump was so troubled and disturbed by this label racist that he'd never had. This man had been involved in big business for a long time. This man was in showbiz. He was on TV. He was doing The Apprentice.
A Democrat.
Exactly. He's working with people from ethnic minority communities. He knows all these famous like boxers and rappers and loads of people that are black or brown. And so to suddenly put himself forward to run as a political candidate and then be told you are Hitler, which is what he got told. He did his utmost during his first term to try and disprove that. This is what I was saying earlier. This is why we can't do that. We can't do it. We have to just say, do you know what, call me what you like. And because I think he learned after that first term, when the election then was taken by Biden, and then they all went after him and tried to put him in jail so he would die in there. I think he came back and realized, I need to stop worrying about being called a racist. I need to stop worrying about these labels and just get on with the task at hand. But I've always maintained that like the word racism when I was a kid, it used to mean something. Much like the word vaccine used to mean something. Remember when a vaccine used to be like an injection of a substance that would prevent someone from contracting and passing on some sort of disease or some ailment.
Then they changed the definition.
Because no longer is a vaccine something that prevents you from contracting or passing this on, but you still have to have it. So they just changed the definition. And I think the definition of racism, actually, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned, it has drastically changed. Because I do think that, you know, you do encounter people that are, I don't even like using the word because I think it's such a ridiculous word. I just reject it as a word. I don't acknowledge it. I think it's nonsense. But if you drill down on it, it used to mean to me somebody that hates someone else because they are a different color.
Yes.
And And that was just really like, it always meant that. I always understood it to mean that. And it was something that I never actually felt. I don't want multiculturalism. I don't want immigration. I don't want globalism. I don't support any of that. And the Bible doesn't, so as a Christian nationalist, I say, I don't support that. I support boundaries and peoples and nations, respective peoples.
I don't support the Kalergi plan. I don't support that.
Exactly. Like the Kalergi plan is something that I'm ferociously against.
United Nations, all that kind of
all of that. But that doesn't mean that I also sit here and think, oh, I hate one of those black people in Africa. Why would I? You know what I mean? That is actually bizarre to me. Like, just being angry, like those bloody Indian people, those brown people in India. I'm so annoyed by
too dark for me, that one, though.
It's just like, it's a weird concept for me. Now, I do get angry when I see parts of my country looking like Bangladesh or Pakistan, because the face of that part of the country has changed and it shouldn't have. That angers me. But it isn't like, I don't know. For me,
it's what happens is, and this is the same with the anti-Semitism smear, is the weaponized words. So the word racist has been weaponized and adapted in order to stop people complaining about the agenda that is being rolled out in front of us, and that goes from the 70s or whatever. These different kinds of influx of foreign people on our lands, and it's
I mean, basically, if you don't support immigration these days, that is enough for you to be termed a racist. And it's such a bizarre concept, because you wouldn't find it in other parts of the world. You wouldn't find, like, if you went to Kenya and said, do you want most people, or do you want white people to disproportionately be represented in adverts? No, we don't. Do you want white people to be disproportionately represented in parliament? No, we don't. These, for me, are very normal answers. I would expect them to say no. And I wouldn't call them racist for doing so. But if we say it in the UK,
it's only applied to a certain ethnicity, us generally, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. All right. Oh, do you know what? I could talk to you. I've loads and loads I want to cover. Maybe I could go a little bit longer than expected. 10 minutes, maybe more.
Yeah, go for it. Listen, it's fine. It's fine.
You could come back time and time again.
Yeah, there you go.
I wanted to talk to you about some character who I can't stand, and his organisation. And you've had lots of dealings with this person over the years. In fact, you were featured in a list this year, which, hang on a sec, Hope Not Hate.
Oh my goodness.
Nick Lowles, Hope Not Hate. So
this is this year?
This is from like the beginning of this, it might be March this year, 2025. You're in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So
these people, mind you, they've used a picture of me that's maybe 15 years old, so that's good.
Yeah.
I can't believe these guys are still going.
Well, I mean, I've only really probably been in my radar for about 2 or 3 years. I've never had any dealings with them, but I just think it's clear to me there's some sort of government operation. Is that what your opinion is? Yeah,
absolutely. Zionist state-funded NGOs. My first dealing with these people are demonic, right? Yeah. Just to be clear, I don't have a problem with people having a different opinion to me. I don't have a problem with people having a different political persuasion, being of a different faith. I believe that my faith is the one true faith. I believe that my political opinion is the right one. But I am adult enough. We used to have the art of debate in this country where we could accept that people had alternative opinions. That's not what these groups are. These are not groups that are, just resolute or dedicated to their political persuasion and unswayable. These are evil individuals who will write they're basically like the trash poster Zionist accounts on social media, but they write about, instead of writing about Muslims and immigration, they write about the right wing. Yeah. And the first dealings I had with them was probably about 12 years ago. They published my address on one of their pages. One of their supporters or someone involved in an organization published my address in London at the time. And I was in my 20s and I had just hit the activism scene. And it was like, what is wrong with these people? Like, and you know, a woman on her own in her 20s, like what's the end game? What are you trying to do? Like so that was my first ever I didn't know who they were because I wasn't involved in the political scene, so I didn't really they weren't on my radar, but they came onto it very quickly. And from there on, they've written. I didn't realize that I was still featuring in any. I don't look at any of this.
There was Britain First are on there, and you're a bit lower down. Yeah,
oh,
so
okay, yeah. So I'm just kind of.
No, you're your own entity in it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, well, they like to use the stuff. They like to use pictures of me when I was in Britain First, which I suppose actually plays two roles because it would anger the people remaining in Britain First because we don't get on. I think they're trying to upset everyone. Me personally, I don't read any of it. I am so blissfully oblivious to what these people are doing because honestly, I just think these people are so lost. They are so consumed by hatred. They talk about us being bigots and racist and xenophobic, Islamophobic, transphobic, whatever phobia or ist of the day. And all I see from these people is just they are oozing with venomous hatred for anyone who doesn't agree with them. And I'll never understand their politics. I can never understand when I see people like I saw Jeremy Corbyn yesterday tweeting out about, you know, where's our humanity? We should be welcoming in more immigrants. I'm just like, what is he talking about? I can't understand it when people say stuff like that. Yeah. But like cerebrally, I'm mature enough to say, all right, well, he's of a different political leaning. I just think these people are crazy, but whatever. But that's not hope, not hate. They are demonic. And their lives are dedicated to try and destroy other people's, to put people in jail, strip their assets. And they've been behind some really, really big attacks against me. Right. And they've heavily pushed them. And like, as you know, that I was put in jail, my house was taken, my bank accounts were closed. These guys are so firmly involved in all of that, stirring the pot. So I'm surprised that they're still going, really. I don't even know who's involved in any of the group, but
I mean, one of the things is that clearly there is a bias, obviously, and I think you've tweeted about this. I certainly did a couple of times. I need to sort my assets out, but the fact that this guy can get away with saying what he's saying, there's two tweets here. This is from the Southport riots. Reports are coming in of acid being thrown out of a car window at a Muslim woman in Middlesbrough. Absolutely horrendous. That story went and, like I said, flew and everyone thought it was true. And then do you remember there was a Tuesday afternoon, I think, and lots of shops and businesses closed down because there were the list going around saying all these towns and cities are going to have far right riots, and nothing happened. And this guy, Nick Lowles of Hate Not Hope,
MI5.
MI5, yeah. It was a massive instigator in spreading false lies, and nothing happens.
I know. We ran a campaign to obviously we knew the government were just going to ignore it, but we just wanted to let people know and give people a voice. And we lobbied the government and said, arrest him. There were people that were thrown in jail for hurty words. Now, look, I'm going to be honest here because I have to be true to my beliefs.
Yes, you do.
I do think that some of the people that were arrested deserve to be arrested. I do believe that. I think that when I saw there was a guy that was arrested, he set fire to a bin in an attempt to set fire to one of the hotels. Listen, if you're going to do that in full public view and people are filming and the police are there, then you need to be prepared that you're going to go to jail for arson. Like, I don't know if you need that explained to you, but you should know that as an adult. So there were certainly, and actually there were also people online that were just outright inciting like murder. Okay. So there are laws that prohibit that. Then there are other people that are state assets on the right wing who were putting out really inflammatory, like really emotive speeches, and it has to go, every city needs to go up.
Yes.
And nothing happened to them, and nothing happened to Nick Lowles. And as far as I'm concerned, these people work for the same institution. They are
Agreed.
assets of the state. And Nick Lowles, we lobbied the government and said, arrest him. This is clear. This is incitement. This is misleading people with an agenda. And people were arrested for a lot less than that. There were lots of people that crossed the legal threshold, and I would say that they did. As someone who has a background in law, I could see that some of the tweets were crossing the legal threshold. There were other people that were just being made examples of. And unfortunately, because the right wing is so disjointed, the nationalist scene is so disjointed, these people didn't have a network like I've been trying to build for many years, where they've got sound advice. They were all being told to plead guilty. They were being told, if you don't take a plea deal now, you could face like 5 years. They were absolutely beside themselves. They were taking these plea deals. There is one guy that I spoke to whose name is Mark. He's online. He didn't take a guilty plea. He went to trial and he won. And I've always said to people, like, stop talking to the police. Don't ever plead guilty. They've only got, don't ever go and bleat in an interview and tell people what you've done or whatever. And don't even try and defend yourself. Just say nothing. Yeah. And so there were people that were in jail for far less than what Nick Lowles put out there.
I'll tell you what as well. Now, I'm not saying that it was his organisation, but probably, in my opinion, from the same, whoever the paymasters are, the initial tweet that got a lot of people in trouble about this guy who killed the little girls was a refugee who just come off a boat. That was fake news, and whoever started or wrote that tweet has never been in trouble for it. If you remember, it got blamed on some dude in Pakistan. And
so the person that wrote it didn't get caught, but someone who shared it got convicted for sharing it.
And I looked into to see what happened to this guy in Pakistan and get any details. And apparently, some guy did get arrested, but got let go within hours. So nobody has been held responsible for that. So it makes you wonder. I mean, if you put two and two together, in my opinion, that was written on purpose in order to start the chaos.
Of course. It's like, look, much like these rage bait accounts, these bot accounts that are, you see them on Twitter all the time, British Patriot or whatever, some with the British flags, and they've got broken English. They're Indians. They're Indian Zionist bot accounts that are basically just there to entrap people. And I've said to people for so long, the reason that lots of people in the UK are finding themselves on the wrong end of the law, on the wrong side of the law, is because they're getting lured into this false sense of security on social media that because our American brothers and sisters are saying something, we're allowed to say it. Those people are protected by a constitution and we are not. Plus, we have a Marxist government, an actual Marxist prime minister. And so we just saw this roundup of people, and Nick Lowles and his MI5 buddies are sitting pretty, completely unscathed. And I hold him as responsible. And it wasn't just right-wing people, actually. There are Muslims in jail right now who saw Nick Lowles' tweet about that woman getting acid thrown in her face. And they tooled up and they went out to go and fight the right wing or kill them, whatever. They had knives on them. And there were Muslims that were jailed. And this is what I said to one of the things that I said to the Muslim community is, listen, if nothing else, I'm not trying to find common ground here because I don't really need it. Like I'm quite resolute in I think we should separate. I think we should, I don't really want to cooperate with people that are that kind of unaligned with my values. But what you need to accept is that your people are in jail because that man who's one of these pro-refugees, open the borders, refugees welcome, allegedly, that guy has got your guys in jail because he lied to you about a woman getting acid thrown in her face. And so stop, but they're fixated on the right. It's the right wing. It's the right wing. Yeah, because people like Nick Lowles are moving all of the little pieces around, the little pawns on their chessboard, and they're just playing games with people's lives. Evil individuals.
Hello. Oh yeah, it makes me angry. I remember seeing, and we can talk about this dude in another episode, but the Tommy Robinson did a documentary on I Hope Not Hate. And one of the things that stood out for me was when it was doorstepped walking down the street, and it was basically being asked, have you paid X amount of money to so and so to create a fake story, and he didn't deny it. And in fact, he almost confirmed that that's what their organisation does: fabricate stories in order to paint false narratives.
Well, so Tommy Robinson's documentary, actually, because it's probably not a secret. Tommy and I don't get on.
Yes.
Tommy works with the people that I used to work with Britain First. And when I left Britain First, there was quite a lot of publicity around the reason that I left, which wasn't very good. And so Tommy, for some bizarre reason, because up until that point they'd kind of hated each other, but he teamed up with my ex-colleague, and they used that documentary to spin this line that I had worked with Hope Not Hate, which is one of the most farcical things I've ever heard in my life. Like, when you consider, there's no one actually that has
Jihadi Jayda.
Yeah, Jihadi Jayda. There's actually no one in the UK that has been as penalised by the establishment as I have in terms of modern day right-wing activists. You've seen people like Tommy going in and out of jail for a little stint here and there, but there's no one that was given. I mean, I was put in Cat A prisons. I was made to serve every single day of a 9-month sentence, another 9 months on license. I was put in Mappa hotels. They took my house. They shut down all of my bank accounts. They stripped all of my assets. And you know, aside from just the general demonization by the establishment, they stood up in the House of Commons and everybody had a go. Like from Sadiq Khan, Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, Theresa May, everybody got up and said how awful I was, right? And so the fact is, Hope Not Hate are just a branch of the establishment. Yeah. And part of this documentary that they said, you know, Hope Not Hate pays people, they actually alleged that against myself and a few other people. And this is where it gets really, this for me is where it gets really sinister, is that this is how you can tell these people are basically doing the bidding of the same organization, the same group. They are assets of the same institution.
Tentacles and all that
exactly,
kind of
absolutely. And there was no coincidence that documentary came out, and you can look this up. That documentary came out at the same time that Nick Lowles launched his book called Tommy Robinson. Now, call me a conspiracy theory, but if those two were in cahoots and hoping that their respective projects were going to make a lot of money, which they did, both of them, it would have been a bloody good idea for them to have released those two things concurrently or consecutively, you know, in very short intervals afterwards. And that's what happened. And so when I saw that, and I saw that there were people that I know, like people that I've known in the right wing for a long time, that were popping up and they were saying they've given them money and they've given them money, I thought, actually, what even is the truth here? Like, who are these people? Who really is in bed with these people? Because I know a lot of people that over the years from the right wing that would never even consider sitting down with them. Like, I think I'm one of the only people in the right wing that has actually never worked with them. Yeah. I saw Lauren Southern's piece, and she was talking about this meeting that was between Tommy and these guys at Rebel Media, and I'm thinking, was I like the only person not sitting down with the communist demons? So but it all goes back to how this sinister link that they've got, this this unholy alliance between characters on the right wing, far right, characters on the far left, who you would believe are being portrayed as just the complete polar opposites. Yeah. But they are pushing one agenda. Yeah. And all the people in between that are telling the truth, whether it's about COVID or immigration or about Zionism, all of us in the middle are going to be victims of either side of that. And
that's a really great line to end on. Yeah, they're the Pied Pipers in both directions. But yeah. All right. Oh, Jayda, enjoyed every second of this. Hope you did too.
I did. It was lovely seeing you and speaking with you.
Yeah, that's it. We talked about it. We're meeting in the flesh one day soon. That'd be nice too.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, I think we've attempted to make plans to do that several times, but.
It'll come. So thank you so much for joining us. Everyone at home, hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to Jayda on Twitter or X, JaydaBF, and at www.the Christian Nationalist Party.com. So see you next time.
Take care. God bless.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
There can only have been one motive behind Donald Trump retweeting this videos, and that is an anti-Muslim motive. And when you think about it, he's leader of the free world. He's president of the United States. He's not some ordinary person off the street retweeting this. He is the president of the United States. So when I read people saying, well, you've got to think about this more carefully, Ian, he wasn't endorsing Britain first. He was retweeting the videos. Well, indeed. And that's the problem, isn't it? I'd like to think that if I was retweeting videos, I'd at least try and make sure that I knew they were real videos. But he doesn't even seem to have done that. I think that's part of the problem. When you have Piers Morgan, who, as I say, is one of the 45 people that Donald Trump follows on Twitter, when you have Piers Morgan wondering about whether he is a racist and an Islamophobe, then you think that, well, he's got to take this seriously. Piers has called on him to apologise and to delete the retweets. I wonder whether he will. And it is a joke when in the very next tweet, he calls out CNN for being a fake news organisation. Well, what has Donald Trump done apart from indulge in fake news? It is an absolute disgrace.
You didn't, frankly, have the balls to put country before party.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.